Times may change, but movie reviews are forever. Let's talk about Toy Story 5.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are back, the Eye of the Storm podcast. So today we are going to be discussing or debating Toy Story 5. But before we get into that, you already know what time it is. Movie recommendation time. A movie recommendation of mine this week is going to be Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So far, so good. I believe I'm on episode 5. For those who haven't seen it, it's literally they're hired professionals and it requires killings, kidnappings, all sorts of crimes in a way. So I haven't actually seen the movie because this is actually produced in a series format. So I haven't actually seen the original content for this one. But in this one, the strangers put together in arranged marriage in a way, but a professional arranged marriage, and they're both out here giving missions, and it's cool. I like kind of like the quirky, got a bit of an A24 look. I like the story. Obviously, each story is different, but of course, it's not like closed episodes. It's leading to somewhere. So yeah, I'll definitely say this is a good watch if you guys haven't seen it so far. So I'm on episode 5, so I'm not actually finished because it goes up to 8 episodes. So I can't really fully give my opinions on it so far because I don't know how it's going to end. But so far, so good. Nice action, nice romance going on, and interesting conflicts, external and internal. So I'll definitely say you guys should give it a watch.
So do they know that the other one is a spy? Because that was kind of the deal in the movie, right?
I haven't seen the movie, so I have no idea. But in this one, they both know that they're spies. The reason why I was hesitant to say spies is because they're not really spying on anyone, but they are, like, the missions that they're given does require kidnapping. There's risks, and the risks that they're at in terms of level, I think they're like mid-level. So they're receiving like mid-level missions. There's a high risk level, which they're not there yet, and it looks like they're building up to it. Well, so far it seems like one of them is building up to it. And I think those missions are more extreme, and those missions might require killings. I'm not sure. Well, actually, no. The first episode, apologies, there was a killing, but it was an unexpected killing. So I wouldn't really call them spies. I don't really know how to define them, but they both had to apply to one to be called John and the other one to be called Jane.
And do they go on separate missions?
No, they go on missions together.
So it has nothing to do with the movie?
I haven't seen the movie. That's the thing. I believe it's based on it in a way because it's called Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah.
It's its own kind of like identity in a way, but still based on the movie. I don't know.
Don't they change the characters as well from like season 1 to season 2? Because I think it starts off with Childish Gambino.
There's a season 2?
I believe that they were like working on it, or like there was going to be like new like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I can't remember. I think I watched like half of the first episode, but I wasn't really paying attention to it and never really revisited it.
So far it says season 1. Maybe there's a season 2 coming out, but
or maybe I saw like reports of it, or like kind of it on the news or something like that.
Yeah, there is a season 2 coming out. It says season 2 delayed. Well, I see a Reddit post, so I'm assuming hopefully it's factual, but yeah.
Hervé, what's the best thing you saw last week?
Congo versus Portugal at the World Cup. Again, I've been consumed by the World Cup. I've not really kind of watched anything, and anytime I do have anything, like do have some time for anything, it's usually when the football is on, so I just kind of put the football on. But yeah, I mean, I was out for the game at a pub that was full of Congolese people, and it was great vibes, man. Everyone's kind of like really united behind their nations at the moment, and it's just kind of beautiful to see. And yeah, I know Daniel has zero interest in the football, apart from discovering a new nation, which was Curacao last week.
You never stop learning.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think it's been a great tournament so far. This is completely nothing to do with movies or anything like that, but it's been a great tournament so far. Some really great games, some upsets that have happened, and some upsets that are currently in progress as well at the moment, where Belgium are currently a man down to Iran. Even like the whole politics around like Iran and how they're having to set up where the players can't stay in America, but their matches are in America, so they have to fly in, go through all the checks, play their game, and then fly out of the country. It's just, that's just a whole other logistics or whatever. But yeah, probably entertaining stuff. Not movie related, but worth watching.
Yeah, I've mostly been enjoying how much space there now is in London if you go to places while the game is on, because now everybody's at home watching the game or in a pub, and suddenly there's so much space on the buses and in various places you go to during a game. So I've been enjoying that. The best thing I've been watching is Evil, which is a 2019 supernatural drama. Now, I like a good supernatural drama. They've kind of been out of favor, or there have not been very many good ones in recent years. And I discovered this one, it started in 2019. There are 4 seasons of it. I've currently seen the first 2 seasons. And so far, it's really, really good. So the premise is essentially that a group of investigators are working for the Vatican to investigate reports of possessions, miracles, prophecies, like anything that is relevant to the interests of the Catholic Church. And they are basically taking a skeptical approach to saying most of these are bunk, but we want to find the real ones. And they assemble a team of a former war journalist who is studying to become a priest, a psychologist who has student loans to pay, and a Muslim-raised atheist tech guy who are all hired by the Vatican to go on these missions, essentially, to investigate these claims of miracles, possessions, and so on. And it usually starts off as kind of a case of the week, but it all kind of feeds into a bigger tapestry of a bigger conspiracy that is going on. And it's that the devil is getting organized, specifically through social media and modern technology. And that makes the job of the church harder. And so they are kind of trying to uncover this conspiracy and fight it. Just as an example of the most recent episode I watched, this is late in season 2, a satanic church is trying to get tax-free status as a recognized religion. And so the IRS approaches the Catholic Church to give an expert opinion on whether or not this is a real church. And the main characters are sent to assess the satanic church that operates out in the open to see if they are real Satanists or not. And they consult with the villain who is a real Satanist, and he is offended at what posers these guys are and explains how real Satanism is actually this. So it's that kind of show. And it's very smart. It drags a little bit because they kind of like, there's a lot of family stuff, but there's ongoing character arcs. And by reputation, the last season ends on a high note. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But just based on the first 2 seasons, this is a really strong supernatural drama that, like, there's not a lot of monster of the week stuff. A lot of the time, the supernatural evil will tie into a more personal and more human problem that the characters have to deal with. And sometimes people who claim to be possessed are not actually possessed, but something else is going on. And the show makes a very big deal about how possession looks a lot like mental illness, and mental illness looks a lot like possession. And the responsible thing is to try to get it right as often as possible, as opposed to saying this is correct, right? So it tells its stories from a religious point of view and from the point of view of people who are aligned with the Catholic Church, but it takes that kind of thing very seriously. And that enables good character dramas and good stories. And a lot of the cases of the week end up being not quite what you thought they would be, but in a good way. Like, it's not a cheap subversion of expectations or anything like that. It's actually like smart writing. Like, I've been enjoying that a lot. And I really hope the show holds up, because supernatural dramas have not had a good decade. And this doesn't look like anything special if you just find it on a streamer. It looks like all the others, but I think this is heads and shoulders above all the others based on how smart it is and how well written it is. And they can still screw it up, and I hope they don't, but that's my recommendation so far.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this one. Cool. And how many seasons? You said 3 seasons?
4 seasons, 50 episodes.
4 episodes. Okay, cool. Okay, well, let me know how that goes. I still have to check out the trailers. So I'll check out the trailers, see if that's my kind of thing as well.
I have very high standards when it comes to things like science and religion and the supernatural and dramas based around all of this. And so far, it's almost meeting my expectations. Like, it's really, really good. Like, a lot of shows really have like, they fall into lazy cliches and just tropes that prevent good stories from happening. And I would say this is like just a hair under Supernatural in terms of good supernatural dramas, which is high praise because that is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Cool. Well, looks like it's time for the main event. Toy Story 5. Danny G, please do your thing.
So Toy Story 5 is an adventure comedy movie in the Toy Story franchise. It follows the story of Jessie and Buzz Lightyear and a few others who are toys of Bonnie, an 8-year-old girl who gets her first tablet at the start of the movie. And that kicks off a sequence of events in which the toys fear being replaced by screens and by technology. And they go on a mission to kind of rekindle Bonnie's love for toys and for play, and to find her some real friends who actually want to play with her as opposed to stare at screens all day. And the story then unfolds from there. So what did we think of Toy Story 5?
I would say it's definitely a lesson that was taught not just for the kids. We could all resonate with this. Put down the devices. I don't know, I just felt like, of course it's for kids, but it's also like a family movie, you know, and it was a bit nostalgic as well. Even though I don't fully remember the Toy Story movies, I have watched all of them and I loved them. So I was always going to watch this movie, you know, even if we weren't going to review it. It's definitely a film that I'll show my kids. So technically it is a classic for me, but it's not like a rememberable classic. Overall, I like the story. Like the lesson that was being taught in the story. My heartstrings are pulling a bit, you know what I'm saying, with what's her name, Bonnie, and the whole, well, I can't really go into it without spoiling it, but just her storyline, her character arc. Of course, it will pull emotional heartstrings. But overall, I like this, man. It definitely felt nostalgic for me. It kind of made me want to go back to playing. Forgot what it's called, but oh my god, I can't believe I forgot the term for like Monopoly and Connect Four and all of that. What was
Board games.
Yes, thank you, Lord. I don't know why I went blank, but yeah, board game. So it kind of made me want to put down my device and just go back to playing board games and just go back to having fun without the need of technology. You know what I'm saying? And it will be healthy as well for me. So I definitely do think it had it actually had a positive impact. Even though it was a animation, it had a positive impact on me. So overall, I like the story. And the way that they told it as well, it was cool. Like, I like the whole concept of technology versus toys. That was great seeing on screen. So I think they were definitely clever the way they did that. So overall, I definitely like this film.
I think I agree. Do I love it? Like probably not. Is it a good movie? I would say so. I like the balance that it had by the end of the movie in terms of like it's kind of debate over toys versus technology and its impact and etc. etc. Maybe a little bit biased in some aspects on how it came across. Maybe a little bit biased, but the message behind it in terms of like having real connections and like connecting in the real life, just being in the real world. I do kind of like back that message, and I do want to see it imparted in kids, but at the same time, like the whole like landscape of the world and like how they're growing up, etc. It's just completely different to what it was like before, and it's just sort of having that level of acceptance as well. I kind of find it a little bit dull in certain times as well. A little bit like trying to be a little bit too emotional in some scenes, but again, it's like it is a kids movie, and you kind of have to like caveat that a little bit in terms of like how dramatize some of the aspects of it, but I think overall it's simple as well in like what it's trying to deliver. I think it's simple. I think it's effective in what it's trying to do, and I think just overall, if you're bringing your kids, I think it's just like a good time at the cinema.
I think I watched the first Toy Story when it came out in the 90s. And I've not really seen any of the others, so I'm not up to speed on the different character arcs. So I kind of just approached this as just a fairly fresh story. And I think it might be one of the better told stories that I've seen this year. It just fires on all cylinders. It's competent. It knows what it needs to do. It knows what its formula is, what its audience is. It is probably a little bit long for a children's movie. Like, I was in a theater full of children, was one of the few adults who was not there with a small child. And the children couldn't handle it. They could not sit still for 100 minutes. This should be like an 88-minute movie, I think. And I think you could cut out big chunks of this and still keep the message intact and the story intact. But what is there, I think, is really strong. The emotional beats worked for me. There's not that many jokes, but the ones that are there didn't overstay their welcome. It's not overly formulaic. It just uses its premise to tell kind of a new story, although I think the basic idea of toys being afraid that they're being replaced happened in the first movie, and I kind of get the feeling that this kind of happens in each one of them. So I don't know how original this is, but it is trying to update its formula to the modern day, right? By talking about screens and technology and children no longer playing with toys and no longer using their imagination, but rather kind of consuming things that are put in front of them. I think it makes its point well. I think it anchors that point in the character arcs and in the emotional beats well. I don't think it pushes, like, it doesn't make much of an argument. It kind of relies on the audience just agreeing that screens are bad, and they're doing a lot to make that relatable. Like, one of the little details I liked in this was that the toys have an easier time getting around the town because everybody's looking at screens. And so they don't have to freeze nearly as often as in the first movie 20 years ago. That was like a nice little touch that resonated with kind of what this movie was saying. But if there's any problem with this, it's that it doesn't try very hard to actually make an argument for why screens are bad. It's just obvious that they are. But outside of that, this is really solid. This does what it needs to do. This is really competent. And it's not superfluous at all. It's just a solid entry, I think, in a franchise that knows what it is. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely can hear that. First question. So the conflict with the lily pad. For you guys, did it offer like a nuanced look at modern childhood? Or do you think the script relied heavily into the whole technology is bad cliche? So do you feel like they did a good job of kind of like showing what childhood looks like now?
However, you might need to do some heavy lifting here because you're the only one who actually has a child.
I mean, in terms of like what child, like obviously my boy, he's a little bit younger than the kids portrayed in this movie. He's only 2 years old.
Almost exactly as old as the podcast, by the way. So that makes it significant.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have quite heavily limited his screen time. Actually, he like if you kind of look around the place. I mean, I'm in the living room right now, and all I'm seeing is just like books and like lots of physical toys and cars, etc. And I think in terms of like what modern childhood looks like today, I think it's very much dependent on the parent and their like tolerance, or like it's a multitude of things, and you don't want to kind of like put it onto one thing, because like sometimes parents just don't have the time to like entertain kids, so like they go with the easy option. Sometimes that parents don't want to do it and they go with the easy option of just like giving them a tablet or something like that, or like it's just kind of like how intentional you are as a parent and what kind of environment you're trying to raise your child in. And I'm like very much aware that like the way that I raise my boy is probably completely different to someone else. He hasn't had like a tablet yet. He hasn't like he's obviously seen other kids with tablets, but he hasn't had a tablet himself, so he hasn't been introduced to always wanting the tablet over wanting to play with his toys or anything like that. So it's kind of hard to say what it would look like for him if that was the case. Obviously, I think the closest thing that he has to it is like maybe like YouTube, if he's like listening to some of his like nursery rhymes on YouTube or whatever the case might be. But even then, you kind of find that if it's on for too long, he'll kind of just like go off and like actually just start doing his own thing and start playing with the toys himself anyways. So I think it's very situational, but the reason why we probably haven't introduced things like tablets is just that level of addictiveness that can come from it. I think it's more fear than anything, I would say, at the moment. So we haven't crossed that bridge yet. When we do get there, again, it will be about limiting his screen time and just making sure that, because even when I'm thinking about it right now, we're just kind of talking about it, having a screen doesn't always have to mean it's bad, because you can put educational stuff on there. There's like, I'm sure there's many things that would help him to like learn his numbers, learn his words, practice his vocabulary, help him to kind of like speak a little more, etc. I think the guys with like tablets being bad is that like, you'll give it to your kid and they'll just like sit there on YouTube for like 8 hours in the day and just kind of like sit there and just watch a whole bunch of nonsense on YouTube, which I personally don't think I'd ever allow. I think it'd just be like educational stuff on there.
I think one thing I would say is that this movie is not a children's movie, right? I think it's accessible to young children, but it's not made for 9-year-olds, I don't think. I think it's too complex for that. It's too long for that. I think the jokes are too mature for that in many cases. And it refers to 20-year-old movies too much for that. Just looking around, I actually paid attention to this, and there were a lot of 8, 9, 10-year-olds, and they were not into it. Like they were like, I remember watching F1 last year, about a year ago. There was a 9-year-old sitting next to me. The 9-year-old sat next to me, and then one seat over was the guy's dad, right? And the kid was into it. Like the kid was into cars and Formula One and racing. And I kind of just glanced over a few times just to get a sense. And that kid was mesmerized by the movie. I did not see any children in this who had this kind of reaction to Toy Story. The question I'm building up to is, watching this as a parent of a young child, do you think this was aimed at children, or was this aimed at parents of small children?
Just interesting point, just before I kind of answer that question. My theatre clapped at the end of the movie. I was so confused because I don't think I've ever experienced that in a long while, but there was a round of applause, and possibly mainly from the parents. Potentially, I don't know. I didn't quite look around. I was like with some friends, so I didn't actually look at who was clapping. It was still dark. But it's interesting that you say that there wasn't like that much interest in yours, and in mine, it got a whole round of applause, which completely confused me. But I would definitely say it did feel kind of geared a little bit more towards like parents, it seems, and probably like parents who had grown up with sort of the original Toy Stories and are now old enough to have had their own kids now. It's still kind of like drawing in, pulling on like their nostalgia of like, this is Toy Story and this is what they grew up with, whilst also then kind of introducing it to sort of their kids and sort of bringing them into the world. But I think you're right in terms of like the kind of conversation that the movie was having, and some of like the debates and just like sort of some of the jokes and some of the themes it was tackling. It did seem like it was more geared towards what a parent might feel. I think I wasn't as like heavily engaged because like my kid's still a little bit like younger than that. I'm not like relating to it as heavy in terms of like dealing with some of the stuff that happened in this movie, like dealing with like negative comments or like people who you think are your friends not really like behaving as your friends and stuff like that. Like I haven't like had to deal with any of that yet because he's still too small. But I can really imagine like if you had a kid that was like of the age of the kids in that movie, or even like in and around that age, how you can kind of like take so much from it and like really start to think about, okay, how do I change the way that I like raise my child, or like get them to interact with other things, and like maybe use their imagination a little bit more and be a little bit more creative, as opposed to just kind of relying on that instant dopamine that can come from sort of technology.
Yeah, that was kind of my follow-up question of, does it resonate? Because the movie is from the child's perspective, right? Which is a shift from, so again, I've only seen the first Toy Story, actually rewatched it this weekend. And there the humans are external characters, right? Like all the main characters, all the points of view are from the toys. And this is different. This spends a lot of time from Bonnie's perspective, right? So she's kind of a co-protagonist in this, which I don't know how Toy Story 2 to 4 do this, but it's certainly a shift from the first one. And the parents are not really characters in this, right? Like we see a little bit where they're unsure whether or not she's old enough for a tablet, and they're making an effort to limit screen time, but they're mostly reacting to what Bonnie wants. Like this whole thing about taking the toys away because Lilypad tricks the dad into thinking, like just sending him messages. Like stuff like this, right? So the parents are not huge parts of this. They're not the point of view characters. And they're not shown to be either, like they are shown to be people who try to be good parents, right? Like they recognize the dangers of screens, but they feel like they can't keep it away from Bonnie entirely. And they're like mostly scared about getting it wrong. So maybe you don't have a very strong answer to this, but my follow-up question is, does this resonate if you're a parent of a small child? Does that part work in the movie, even though it's a relatively small part of it?
In terms of how it resonates, I think in the sense of anytime you're like introducing something new or you're providing something new to your child, you kind of have to be conscious of like, what is that going to do to the child? Like, how are they going to like, react to it? What benefit are you trying to produce from it? And again, in this movie, it's like the screens are inevitable. At some point, they have to interact with the screens. Just like the parents having like the thoughts of limiting the screen time or like what's a good amount and what's too much. I think you can feel that like that fear of like getting it wrong. And I say this all the time in terms of you can only do like a certain amount as a parent. You can only kind of like take it up to a certain point. And then after that, you just kind of have to hope that you've instilled enough in your kid for them to like make the right decisions and kind of like head down the right path. And that fear that the parents have in this, it's very valid and it's very real. You don't want to mess your child up, especially with something like so simple. At the same time, there's also that level of yourself as a parent. I think it's is it Bonnie or Blaze, the one where Jessie spends most of the time at the other house. I think that one's Blaze. I think
Blaze is the horse girl, and Bonnie is the main, is like kind of the other girl.
The other one. So with Blaze, like you can kind of see like even like with things like the work from home setup that like the dad had and things like that, how kind of like consumed and like distracting like things like that can be, is like, even though you're in the house but you're not really present, and then because like the adults are like so consumed with like the screens and stuff like that, the toys is like moving about more freely, and also like there's things happening in your house that you're not aware of because you're not paying attention, like the dad putting the toys away just all from a message and not actually speaking to the child and be like, oh, like why do you want to put the toys away, or like, are you done playing with this, whatever. It's also that like almost like that mirror up to the parent that's watching it of like, do you know what's happening inside your house? Are you actually speaking to your child? That's kind of why I say a lot of this is like situational. It's very much dependent on you as a parent, what type of parent you are. Do you kind of recognize some of your flaws? Do you recognize some of the things that you're doing well? What can you take away from it to do better? Because again, it's like, even like the messages that Bonnie was receiving from her friends and like why she was upset, you just have to, as much as you can, just be aware of like what's going on in your kid's life.
Do you think the movie did enough to be interesting or insightful about that? Or is it all a bit obvious?
I said it was a bit biased in some of its portrayal. I think it was like really trying to go for an angle of here's the pitfalls of technology and here's whatever, and this is why it's like better to be IRL or in real life, etc. I think the movie was probably a little bit biased because things like bullying do happen. We've seen in like those movies that are set in like the 2000s and before like that, where you're in real life and you'll get bullied in real life as well. So it doesn't matter if it's on the tablet or whatever, those things can happen. In terms of like some of the other like stuff about like around the parents and stuff like that, I think it does just enough. Like it's not the main thing of the movie. It's not the main kind of like driving point, but it's kind of more like the background painting of kind of like what's going on and like things that you can kind of take away from it, whilst there's this core debate of technology versus toys going on in the movie.
I thought it was enlightening. So the question I ended up asking myself was, have kids outgrown toys? Because I don't know. I don't think they ended up saying technology is bad. Like they did. That was pretty much how the film opened. However, at the end, toys and technology pretty much worked in unison. So I think there was a good resolution to the film rather than just saying technology is bad, toys are good. I don't think it was expected. I still don't know if it's a thing where kids have outgrown toys. And I'm going to search up that question. I think they were smart the way that they did this topic because it was universal. It was, of course, it was directed at the parents. However, it was masquerade in Toy Story, so it made it accessible for kids. And in my cinema, the kids, they actually loved it. I think it is different in terms. Well, I just think obviously kids are gonna obviously have different experiences. But obviously in the cinema I was in, there were kids who were loving it, and I think there was an applause at the end as well in my cinema too. So I think they were definitely smart the way that they did it. They did it on a subject matter in a way where I think everyone can actually get into it, so not just kids. So I can't remember what the subject matters were for the previous Toy Stories. However, for this one, it seems like they added like a fresh take, especially making Jessie the main character, because I was a bit skeptical of that. So I was like, damn, I kind of wanted to see it be revolved around Woody and Buzz again, because obviously that was my childhood too. So, but I wasn't mad that they chose Jessie to kind of be like the forefront, like the main character. So I didn't know technology was a big thing, but I didn't know kids were proper like engulfed into their screens like that of the movie. So it made me ask myself that question.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure to what extent this is happening. Like, if you give a 4-year-old a toy where they say, "No, I've already got a tablet. What is this?"
There were 8 though in this film.
No, but like a small child.
But that's the thing though, because I don't think it was like a broad point they were making where they were saying kids in general, but I think 6 and above, kids that can pretty much walk and talk. I'm saying, I think they were very specific in terms of who, was affected by technology.
I'm just saying, what I don't know is if children are actually rejecting toys because they've got screens. Like, I don't know that is the case. And, not having children, I've not had opportunity to see that happen. Obviously, screens are very addictive, right? Especially if you're very young. This idea makes sense in a way, but I don't even know to what extent this is true. But the entire movie is predicated on the toys being afraid of becoming obsolete and of being discarded. One line in this is, toys are for play, but technology is for everything. And that means technology will displace the toys. That's kind of why I asked earlier about, does it show enough to actually show that the impact of technology is bad and all the ramifications of this and how this happens? Because it does seem to take it a little bit for granted. And because of that, I'm not sure it really reaches kind of the level of relevance, in the sense that this is very clearly a problem, and children rejecting toys or leaving toys behind is inherently a bad thing. Like, I'm still not entirely sold on that.
One of the most kind of profound things that I took from the whole like technology is bad thing was the game that they were playing, and like this score that they like had in the game, and like feeling like you're falling behind if you're not on it all the time, and like this kind of like dopamine reward of having like things like these like leaderboards and these challenges things, and like competing against friends and this that, and the other, that's like in perpetuity. So like for forever you're like always competing, and it's like this incentivization of always wanting to come back to the technology, and always like as soon as you wake up you're thinking about the game, you're thinking about, I don't know what the kids play these days, like a Roblox or whatever. I don't know what the young kids play, because my boy's not at that age yet, but I know Roblox is like a big one, and there's like loads of different like things for it, but it's that like dopamine reward that targets adults a lot. Things like your like Candy Crushes and other sort of like similar games like that. There's always like this thing to try and like hook you back in, but it's even more like dark and even more like sinister when it's being targeted at kids and they're being like teased or whatever because like they're falling behind because they're not part of like whatever, or like they're just like not in the in-group or whatever the case might be. But that was where like one aspect where it's like, okay, when we're creating these things for kids, are we being ethical about it? Are we doing it the right way? Are we being mindful of that addiction that's being created by making them chase this status or this reward or this leaderboard or whatever the case might be?
And I think that's part of why I am a little bit skeptical about the premise, is because whenever I see this stuff happen, it's adults, right? Like, so one of my absolute pet peeves is when I walk down the road and I have to parkour around people because everybody else is on their phone as they're walking on the streets. And I have to dodge them. Like, they will not even perceive the environments, right? And this is everybody. This isn't just a few people here and there. This is pretty much everybody. I don't think I've ever seen a child do this, honestly. Like, that's kind of why this rings a little bit. Like, obviously, the addictive aspect of algorithms and of social media and of how like a child's brain is just very impressionable, but just in terms of being consumed by the screen, it's something I pretty much only see in adults. If you go outside and walk around and look at people.
I'm confused why you guys kind of like still feel this way, even though the film ended with technology and toys working hand in hand. Because even just right now, I searched up an article. Well, I asked the question, have kids outgrown toys? And it says, no, they haven't. Kids generally like blended play, so they like playing with technology as well as toys, and that's how the movie ended. So do you guys still feel this way about the whole subject matter?
I'm more questioning just the basic premise of it. In terms of the storytelling, like I was kind of building up to that because I do want to talk about that. But like the basic idea of this is a problem that specifically is about children, I'm not too sure about. Like that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I took it more of it was a growing threat. And that's what happens nowadays. Because obviously stuff like this, subject matters do make the news. And obviously things that make the news, they're not just going to make it up. So clearly it stems from something. So I think the storyline here was more of a stem rather than it's a national crisis in a way. So I just took it as it is a moment that these kids are actually going through where they're being engulfed into their screens, and obviously that moment ends up fading away by the end. But yeah, I didn't take it as what you guys are saying. I just took it as, okay, this is like a moment, and that does happen in society. Like I said, things make the news. This subject matter has made the news, and it stemmed from kids being on the screens a lot, even though it's not like a thing where it's worldwide. It's not like a national crisis.
I think it is worth kind of asking, like, is this actually describing something that really happens? Like, you do get things like Bonnie kind of being completely mesmerized by the screen, and like the first thing she does when she wakes up is check on the game, right? And I've done that, right? And I kind of outgrew it after a while, but it is something that people do, right? And especially like the stuff you said about leaderboards and daily challenges, and if you don't keep up with the game, it will immediately leave you behind, right? Like if you just take a day off or half a day off, you might lose your friends because they've moved on in the game. When Lily has an empty battery and so Bonnie can't play for a few hours, she's upset and she's kind of throws a tantrum, right? So there is absolutely stuff in here. Like I was just wondering out loud, is this like is the thesis of the movie even that close to reality? And yeah, I'm totally happy to accept that it mostly is.
I think kind of you made the point about like dodging people on the streets, etc. You'd have to be a very terrible parent to give your child devices whilst they're walking the streets, etc. I think, you know, most of the time when you see it, and like when I'm in and around it, it's in the home. It's if you're at a restaurant and you're like, the kids are like sat down and you want your kid to just behave, or if you're in a shopping mall and you want the kids to just behave, so you just kind of throw the tablet at them so that they sit still or in one place. I think that's where the dangers are, and I feel like that was kind of like portrayed here as well, where like, you know, she was kind of like mainly on it in her home. She did have the tablet in the car as well, or it was also, I think they were like getting food, and like the reason like the tablet was able to get away was because like she kind of like put it down for a second, and then the tablet just kind of like screwed on by into the truck or whatever. But in terms of like the movie and where like the environments it portrayed it, I think it was correct in the sense of like it's happening in these settings, especially when the parent probably should be a little bit more present and a little bit more aware of like what's going on.
I'm just coming at this from when somebody walks into me in the street or on the tube or something because they're looking at a screen. It's not a 14-year-old, it's a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old, right? So that's the disconnect for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, why didn't you relate the film with your experience? Because when you said you've had a moment where, you know, you've been pretty much engulfed in the screen as well, but obviously that was just a moment. Why didn't you take the film as that? Because that's how I took the film.
I think what it is that not a lot of time is spent on Bonnie actually being addicted. Like there are moments there, and we've mentioned a few of them, right? Where the first thing she does when she wakes up is check on the status of her games and stuff like that. But the story is not predicated on Bonnie is just instantly hooked and addicted and she forgets about everything else. It is there a little bit, right? Like this whole thing about how when she's over at her friend's house and they're all just looking at their screens, but they are playing the game, right? And they're playing it together, right? It's kind of the disconnect. If this is the point of the story, then the story would have spent a lot more time on how Bonnie is being consumed by these games, and about how she actually doesn't do anything creative anymore, when in fact a lot of these games actually have a lot of creative components. Maybe that's kind of what I was bouncing off of, because this is mostly told from the point of view of the toys, and the toys are basically afraid of being replaced by something else. And the movie doesn't do a lot to show that something is actually worse, which makes it very self-motivated. As in, the toys care about this because they are being ignored, not because Bonnie inherently is worse off. And I think part of this is that the fact that Bonnie's lily pad or pond friends, the people she plays with online, are also awful people who don't care about her and who bully her, and that Blaze is actually a great friend who she can actually play with, that is author fiat. Like that does not follow from the facts of the story. The script decides that this is the case. And in the real world, it could be the other way around. For a lot of people, the experience is that the people who are in your, like around you, your classmates, or the people who live in your town or on your street, are not that great, and your true people are online. I'm the age that was kind of the first group that really grew up online. And for a lot of us, that was the reality, that we found our people and that we found creative outlets and passions online because we were connected with other people who had the same interests. That is something that the movie just completely ignores and just says, obviously, playing in person is better than playing online. And that is not self-evident. That is not just true.
It didn't build up to that though. It built up to blended play, build up to technology can be good and toys
Sure.
can be good. There has to be a good balance. And also with the toys and technology, at first it is because neither, especially the toys, they didn't want to get left out. However, their intention was still what's best for Bonnie. And then even though there was selfish intention behind it because they were, like I said, they were scared that they were going to be left behind. Soon as the story progressed, Jessie ended up realizing what was best for Bonnie, and I think it was both of them, was the toys and it was Lily, because that's when they went to go and save Lily. And because obviously Lily, her intention as well was best for Bonnie, and she ended up kind of like sacrificing herself by jumping into the van. Even though they did have selfish intentions, it still was rooted in what is best for Bonnie.
I think what is interesting about the story and what I was pleasantly surprised by is that both the toys and Lily care about Bonnie. And at some point, Lily realizes that the people she put Bonnie in contact with, like her friends she can play with online, are not good for her. And that Blaze is better for her. And at that point, they start working together because ultimately they both care about what's best for Bonnie, in the same way that in this universe, just all toys are attuned to their child, right? Like they all want the best for them. And they, like since the first movie, they've always kind of gone on missions to connect them with friends or whatever, right? And that is exactly what happens here. And Lily just has a different opinion about what is best for Bonnie. Like she has this very cookie cutter idea of, we're just going to sign up for all these games and we're going to connect her to, I think it was her dance group or something like that, like people she already knew, and they're playing this game, and so we're gonna help Bonnie get a foot in the door and play with them and all of that, and that is how she makes friends. And then she realized that it is incorrect because those are like not very good friends. That's where she and the toys end up teaming up together, and that is where Lily then makes the big sacrifice of removing herself from Bonnie's life. But I'm just saying it's all a little bit author fiat because it's I don't think it's very earned in terms of showing why that is better for Bonnie. Obviously it is, but I'm just saying the script just makes it so. Because I was once like a 12-year-old who really got into like online communities and who made experiences that I could not have made in person because there was nobody around me who shared those interests or who could teach me a certain thing or who could help me get into a particular topic or whatever. That's to me the big benefit of the internet and just online communities. And I think that has gotten worse over time with like social media replacing like the old internet, where everybody's kind of just shouting into a void trying to promote themselves and trying to get attention out of that, whereas in the past it was more about meeting people who have the same interests. And I don't know what that's like for children now. Maybe that's what happens on Discord servers now. I guess that's the case. But that was my experience with the internet, like in like 1998, that sort of thing. And like that is kind of why all of this seemed a little bit forced. But I do think that Lily is an interesting villain and that she's not really a villain. She just has a different opinion about what is best for Bonnie. And once she realizes her mistake, she tries to fix it. Ultimately, the antagonist in this is just Bonnie's personality because she is repeatedly given opportunities to make friends with Blaze and she just walks away from it multiple times. She basically has to be tricked into it. And then once she is tricked into it, it's the right thing for her. And she's happy that way. And that's the happy ending.
I was kind of surprised with Lily's decision to take herself out of the equation, because from that point I still did think she had selfish intentions in terms of like she just wanted to kind of be like the main person in Bonnie's life as well as getting rid of all the toys. So then when she ended up jumping in the van, I was like, oh damn, so she is kind of like looking out for Bonnie and she genuinely does care about Bonnie. For me, that turning point was actually really good. That for me kind of made it more, it just made the movie more good for me.
I think the word you're looking for is better.
Better, yeah, apologies. It's even worse. It's late, guys. My bad.
Any other thoughts on the story, on the characters? Like another leg of this is Jessie's story about learning to let go. Like she's basically reunited with her first owner. I don't want to make too fine a point about this, but they have owners, right? And they adore the owners and worship them. It's a little bit creepy, isn't it?
Wait.
They're literally branded with the names of their owners.
No, but it makes their toys though. This technically does make sense.
In the logic of this movie, they are people.
So technically speaking, I hear what you're saying, but
I'm just saying, the more time I spend in the Toy Story universe, the creepier it gets. Because like these are very humanized characters, right? Like they probably don't quite have free will, but like whenever the humans aren't around, they mostly do. But then they kind of have this compulsion of serving their human I'm not even trying to make a point here. I'm just observing this, and it was a little bit like every time it happened, it just get a little bit creepier. Anyway, Jessie's arc is about learning to let go, right? Like learning that her humans will leave her behind at some point. I'm a little bit confused about why she didn't learn this the first 2 times, because Bonnie is her third owner. Like there's this back in the 70s, I guess. Her first owner, like she's a toy from the 50s, right? And then she had an owner in the 70s or thereabouts. That girl eventually grew up and became a teen and kind of left her behind. And then eventually she had another owner. And then at the end, it's a little bit convenient that Blaze lives in the house where her first owner lived, right? Massive coincidence. But anyway, she finds this box, essentially, like a box of mementos that her first owner buried. And that owner liked her toy so much, like a doll she had as an 8-year-old, that she named her child after that toy. And the box is full of memories about how much she loves her daughter, and about how the torch gets passed to the next generation, and about how the toys have to learn that they are temporary and that their humans will grow up and then they will get a new human. I don't want to make too fine a point about this because I don't know what happened in Toy Story 2 through 4, but I felt for Jessie as I was watching it. And it's a really well-crafted moment, right? When she discovers this box of mementos and she kind of grows up, essentially, where she comes to realize that she did her job because her previous owner is now a happy, functioning adult. And there's a next generation that can play with her. In the moment, it totally makes sense. But why is this something the toys don't understand? Especially the ones who have been around for a while. Isn't this something that happens every 10 years? Like what's the big insight that Jessie gets at the end of her arc in this? Because she kind of goes off to that tree with the swing, right? Essentially to die. She kind of gives up. And then she realizes, like she finds this box. And the box essentially is the epiphany. And the insight essentially comes down to, yes, your human outgrew you, and yes, you became obsolete in that way, but there was a next generation that needed you. And it's your job to bring joy and support to the next generation and then do it again and again and again. I'm just asking, why did she not know this before? Like, is this not something that just the toys just know?
Obviously, the other times where she was thrown away, there wasn't I think because she emphasizes on importance as well as recognition. And I think with obviously her previous owner naming her child after her, that was kind of like the justification she needed when it comes to her importance and recognition in a way, because like I said, other times she was just thrown in the box because she already builds a connection to her owner. Now, Daniel, you've mentioned the whole owner point. Now I'm kind of like thrown off by even you saying the word owner. But yeah, so I think those previous times that she was thrown away, she wasn't acknowledged. Whereas her actually seeing her name being given to her daughter and obviously seeing the impact that she had on her previous owner is a thing where she's actually seen, like she's physically seen that she was actually important to someone. Trying to understand what the toy logic could be behind why she never understood this before, but I think maybe that is why, because she's actually seen now what her existence had on someone else.
Because they're immortal, right? Like, as long as they don't break, their humans outgrowing them should just be a fact of life, right?
Yeah, toys just operate differently, because I'm not too sure how Buzz and Woody, because I don't know if they've had different owners. I can't remember if they've had different owners, but maybe it's just her problem, like her individual toy problem. Maybe I'm sure other toys reacted differently, but yeah, I don't know.
Buzz definitely, their human was like this, I forget the name now, but like this 9-year-old boy. And Bonnie is just a completely different family. I don't know how often they've switched owners. Like, I don't know if it's a different one each movie or if they switched at one point or whatever. I'm just saying, even Buzz has had at least 2. So why is this profound? Like, why is this interesting? It's just what I'm asking.
When you say interesting, do you mean as in like, why did this specific case kind of like open her eyes?
Why is this a compelling character arc? Like, is this not a character realizing something that's really, really obvious?
I do not know.
Yeah, you've actually put it down on, not a downer, but like, because that was actually like a really nice moment in the movie.
It is, right? It's a really well-crafted moment. Like emotionally, I was completely there. But afterwards, I was wondering what happened.
I'm not well versed on the other Toy Story movies because I've probably like seen them once. There's probably something in there about like being handed over, etc., to other kids or whatever.
But Dan, you did mention before that technically speaking, these toys are supposed to be presented as humans, and as humans are all different. Like to certain, like for example, like when we with us, like we'll realize certain things, right, and other people still hold on to certain things. Like for example, some people will not like to grow, like they don't want to grow up, so they still act immature. Still, if these toys are presented as human beings, then technically speaking, even though it's obvious to us, it's not going to be obvious to other people. Now, that's just her personal problem, insecurity that she needs to get over.
But the other toys don't help her, right? Like, it's not like all the other toys get this, and she just needs a little help.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like I'm missing something really obvious, but like just thinking about this now, the more I think about it, the less it adds up, is my problem.
I don't know.
And I think this has something to do with the movie kind of just presenting its conclusion as obvious. Like, for instance, the play scenes I thought were really well done. That the toys are really getting this existential ecstasy from being played with, right? Like, that's a cool little detail, and that's in an interesting place to take this. And it's like those play scenes are very creative, and this idea that kind of the humans imbue personality and purpose in the toys by playing with them, talking about creepy implications. Jessie and what's the guy she ends up with?
Buzz.
Is that Buzz?
When you say end up with, you mean in terms of who she romantically ends up with, or are you talking about her owner?
Yeah, romantically.
Buzz.
There's like two characters who get married in the play, right? And then they fall in love themselves, like when the humans are not watching.
Buzz and Jessie was at the end.
Okay, which is a little bit creepy if you think about it, especially with how humanized the toys are. But it's this idea that the play infuses them with meaning, right? And if they're no longer being played with, they no longer have any meaning. I think that is part of why that part doesn't quite sing with me, because it doesn't quite earn it. And that ties into Jessie's existential crisis of, I'm losing my human, because my human is what imbues me with meaning. And if I lose that, then I've got nothing. And so there's no point to living anymore, right? Like, that's kind of where she is at, like halfway into the movie. I have a feeling like I'm missing something really obvious, but it seems to be just assuming that if you're watching this, you are on board with the premise. And so you want to see the toys win. And I think that might be a flaw in the story, which is weird, because everything else about this is so good. Like the characters and the motivations and the stakes, and all of that is really well realized, I think. And this is like a really pivotal part. And I have a feeling it's a little bit circular in that it just assumes that this is what it should be, but doesn't really show it necessarily. I don't know. I'm having a hard time putting my finger exactly on what doesn't work for me, but I think it's got something to do with this. Another question I have is, what was the point of the buzzes? Like, this entire subplot about them kind of trying to find Star Command and them coming to believe that Jessie is Star Command because she wears a star. Is like, does it have anything to do with anything, or is that just kind of what Buzz Lightyear has been doing since the first movie? So we're gonna do more of this. I mean, I think they're a lot of fun every time they kind of do a thing, but is there a point to it?
I don't think so. To be fair, that was like a random side plot. I think they were, by the end of the movie, like kind of like the depiction of technology and toys kind of coming together, with their ability to fly and like kind of like playing a pivotal role in helping the team kind of like escape the moving van, etc. And I actually thought that was like a nice moment. That was like when it was like, okay, we've seen toys are good, technology is bad, etc. But what happens when it comes together and you get like this more advanced version of Buzz Lightyear than sort of what we've known previously, which I think was nice. But again, I don't really know too much of the other movies and like Buzz himself to kind of like really know what they were doing in this movie and why they were like Jason Star Command or whatever. I don't know. It was a strange one.
All I know is, like, I just rewatched the first movie, and that movie is all about the things Buzz believes he can do, he can't actually do. Like, he doesn't actually have weapons, and he can't actually fly, and all of that. And here they actually fly. That was a little bit strange. And also, like, that update that they got from Potty Trainer seemed a little bit out of nowhere. And that is really pivotal to them escaping that truck, right? Like, without that, the plot doesn't work. It seemed a little bit like filler, as in, we're gonna have them do fun stuff, and we're gonna use that to enable the plot, but I don't know that it tied into any of the other stuff. And like, I guess the stuff about them and them being a more technologically advanced toy is something, but it doesn't quite sing in my head, because they're already doing this by working together with Lily, right? And all the ways that they can manipulate the humans comes from Lily's capabilities. And so by getting Lily on their side, they are already getting that fusion of toys and technology, and together they are better than on their own. So I'm not like, the buzzes seem a little bit redundant in that.
Yeah, I get what you mean. At first I just thought they were kind of just adding on to the whole theme of technology over toys, and toys are dying. because they were found at sea one day. They were in some sort of container.
A ship crashed and they kind of just spilled onto an island and they're just following their programming, right? Like the thing about the Buzz toys, at least in the first movie, was that they don't know their toys. They actually believe kind of their brand. And that is what they're doing here, right? Like that is why they are trying to find Star Command, and that is why they're acting like these space commandos.
Seems like they were looking for purpose.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I was going to say, because obviously toys have owners and they're looking for a purpose. So in a way, it does fall hand in hand.
Yeah, and Buzz, like the main character Buzz, he started out in that place, and I guess it shows character growth that he now gets to mentor all the other Buzzes, right? And like helps them get to the point that he reached in previous movies, I guess. But there's a lot of time spent on this, and I was like, as I was watching it, I was wondering, like, what's the point? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening, and it's kind of fun, but where are we going with this? Anyway, I just thought I missed something maybe. All right, any other thoughts on Toy Story 5?
I think I'm just going to go straight to my last thought on Toy Story 5. And I will say, I definitely did enjoy this film. Like I said, I did really like this film, and it would be a film that would take, I actually wanted to go see this with my family. So I would definitely recommend you guys to go and watch this film. It is a fun film. Story's good. I like the story. There's lessons taught in this film, and I found it very enlightening because, I didn't know the whole subject around toys and kids and if they outgrown it and the whole blended play. Because I did actually wonder as well, like how influential is technology when it comes to kids of that age group. Well, to kind of like see in terms of reading the report about how they like blended play. I'm glad in a way that technology hasn't, kids haven't outgrown toys with technology. So it is definitely an enlightening film too. I will give this one I think I'm gonna give this one a strong 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought it was kind of insightful, enlightening in places. A little bit long in certain places as well. It definitely felt like a long movie. Good emotional moments in certain aspects. Sometimes like some of the whining gameplay from Jessie was a bit much for me. It does achieve the feel good aspect of it as well, especially when the kind of like two come together. I think it has like really good moments in this. Overall, I think just kind of good movie, but nothing to kind of like write home about. I was very confused about the applause that the movie got at the end of the film.
I think this is a really competently made movie. I think it flows well. I think it has all the right emotional beats. You really care about these characters and their struggles in the moment, and you're happy for them when they succeed. When it's supposed to be funny, it's funny. When it's supposed to be dramatic, it's dramatic. When it's supposed to be emotional, they manage to make you care about these characters. I think my main problem is that to the extent that it's aimed at children, it's too complex and it's too long. Like I think a child is just going to bounce off this. If it's aimed at adults, like from the perspective of maybe the parents or something, it probably doesn't do enough to be interesting, probably. So this succeeds purely based on the production values and on the emotional beats. And those are really strong. And so as I was walking out of the theater, I felt really good about it, but the more I was thinking about it, kind of the less satisfying it is, which makes it feel a little bit hollow. As we've actually talked about it, my rating of it has gone down, and it's now at a 5 out of 8. Just because the point it's trying to make, it makes well, but it's a little bit obvious. And to the extent that it tries to do something profound, it kind of struggles with actually getting there. And that's kind of a weird space to be in. It's a weird in-between situation for a movie to be in. So maybe it should have picked a lane or like a specific thing it wanted to do and just focused on that to exclusion of all the other stuff. And then maybe that would have had more impact in a lasting way that survives, like thinking about it for a little bit.
Well, guys, thank you very much for joining today's discussion.
If you reach this part of the episode, as always, we appreciate you press and play, giving us a listen, and just generally checking us out. And as always, if you liked what you heard today and you enjoyed our discussion, you should probably tell a friend. And if you hated everything and you thought we were chatting a whole bunch of nonsense, then I hope someone sends you crying emojis in your comments. We are the Eye of the Storm podcast.
Good one. We'll catch you next time. Au revoir.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.